Have you ever arrived somewhere and felt different within minutes, even though nothing in your life had actually changed? The same responsibilities were waiting for you. The same problems existed. The same emails would still be there tomorrow, and yet something felt lighter. Your shoulders relaxed. Your breathing slowed down. Your thoughts became less chaotic. You felt calmer, clearer, and somehow more like yourself. Many people experience this in a quiet village, beside a lake, on a forest trail, or while walking through an old European town. They often assume the feeling comes from being on holiday. They think the relaxation comes from taking time off. But for many people with ADHD and highly sensitive nervous systems, something much deeper is happening. The environment itself is changing the amount of work their brain has to do. And once you understand this, you begin to realize that some places are not simply beautiful. Some places are regulating. One of the biggest misunderstandings about ADHD is that it is only a condition of attention. In reality, many researchers increasingly view ADHD as a condition involving attention, sensory processing, emotional regulation, stress regulation, and energy management. Many ADHD adults spend their lives in environments that continuously overwhelm their nervous systems without ever realizing it. They blame themselves for feeling exhausted. They blame themselves for needing more recovery than other people. They blame themselves for feeling drained after activities that seem normal to everyone else. But often the problem is not weakness. The problem is that their brain is constantly processing far more information than most people realize. Every second of every day, your brain is receiving information from the environment around you. Sounds, movement, colors, conversations, lighting, smells, visual complexity, traffic patterns, social interactions, digital notifications, advertising, background music, and hundreds of other signals are constantly entering the nervous system. Most of this processing happens automatically. You are not consciously aware of it. Yet your brain is working continuously to filter, prioritize, and interpret all of these inputs. For ADHD brains, that filtering system often functions differently. Information that other people effortlessly ignore may continue demanding attention. The result is that many ADHD adults are living with a level of sensory workload that they rarely recognize until it finally disappears. This is why arriving somewhere quiet can feel almost emotional. It is not simply that the place is peaceful, it is that your nervous system suddenly has less work to do. Imagine carrying a backpack all day without realizing how heavy it is. After several hours, you stop noticing the weight because it becomes normal. Then someone removes it. You immediately feel the difference. Quiet environments often create a similar experience. The burden was always there. You simply became accustomed to carrying it. There is a fascinating concept in environmental psychology called attention restoration theory. The theory was developed by researchers who wanted to understand why people consistently reported feeling mentally refreshed after spending time in nature. Their conclusion was surprisingly simple. Modern environments place enormous demands on what scientists call directed attention. This is the type of attention you use when concentrating, making decisions, solving problems, resisting distractions, managing emotions, or forcing yourself to stay focused. Directed attention is a limited resource. The more you use it, the more fatigued it becomes. Nature appears to work differently. Instead of demanding attention, it gently attracts attention. The movement of leaves in the wind, reflections on water, birdsong, clouds moving across the sky, and natural landscapes capture awareness without effort. Researchers sometimes call this soft fascination. Your attention remains engaged, but it is not being forced. As a result, the brain's directed attention system gets an opportunity to recover. For ADHD minds that are often working overtime to manage distractions, this recovery can feel profound. What makes this particularly interesting is that many people with ADHD instinctively seek environments that contain this quality. They may not know the science. They simply know how they feel. They feel calmer near water. They feel better walking through forests. They feel more regulated in smaller towns. They feel exhausted after spending too much time in crowded shopping centers, airports, busy streets, or large urban environments. Their nervous system is responding to differences in cognitive demand, even if they cannot consciously explain why. This helps explain why some cities feel energizing while others feel exhausting. Most travel discussions focus on attractions, restaurants, and activities. Very few conversations focus on sensory load. Yet sensory load may be one of the most important variables for people with ADHD. Think about the difference between standing in the center of a busy commercial district surrounded by traffic, flashing signs, crowds, and constant movement versus standing beside a quiet river in Annecy, walking through the historic streets of a small village in Provence, or sitting near a lake in Switzerland. Both environments contain information. Both environments stimulate the senses, but one demands attention while the other supports attention. The nervous system evolved over thousands of years in environments dominated by natural patterns. Trees, rivers, grasslands, coastlines, and seasonal rhythms shaped the conditions under which human attention developed. Modern environments are extraordinarily different. Bright artificial lighting, endless notifications, high-speed transportation, digital media, constant advertising, and social pressure create a level of stimulation that our ancestors never experienced. For many ADHD brains, which already struggle to filter incoming information efficiently, modern life can become a continuous exercise in sensory management. This may be one reason why so many women discover a new appreciation for quiet environments after the age of 40. Earlier in life, many people can compensate for nervous system overload through energy, ambition, adrenaline, and determination. They push through. They build careers. They raise families. They maintain busy schedules. They ignore signals from their bodies because there always seems to be something more important demanding attention. But eventually, many women reach a point where the strategy stops working. The nervous system begins asking for different conditions. This shift is often misunderstood. Women frequently describe feeling less tolerant of noise, crowds, interruptions, and overstimulation as they enter midlife. They sometimes worry that they are becoming antisocial or losing resilience. In reality, many are simply becoming more aware of what their nervous system has been trying to communicate for years. Hormonal changes, accumulated stress, cortisol dysregulation, sleep disruption, and decades of overstimulation can make environmental influences much more noticeable. What once felt manageable now feels exhausting because the nervous system no longer has unlimited capacity to compensate. Cortisol plays an important role in this conversation. Cortisol is not the enemy. It helps us wake up, respond to challenges, and remain alert. Problems arise when the nervous system remains activated for extended periods of time. Constant stimulation creates a background state of vigilance. Traffic noise, digital overload, social demands, multitasking, and sensory clutter all contribute to a nervous system that rarely experiences true recovery. Over time, many people begin to feel tired and wired simultaneously. They feel exhausted, yet unable to relax. They feel depleted, yet constantly alert. This state has become so common that many people assume it is normal. Then they spend several days in a quiet environment and suddenly notice a dramatic difference. They sleep more deeply. Their thoughts slow down. Their patience improves. Their emotional reactivity decreases. Their body feels safer. Again, this is not simply a psychological effect, it is often a physiological response to reduced nervous system demand. The brain is finally receiving fewer signals that require processing, filtering, and monitoring. Another factor that often gets overlooked is visual complexity. Many people think only about noise when discussing overstimulation, yet the visual environment may be equally important. Some places create a sense of visual calm. Streets feel organized, architecture feels coherent, buildings share similar proportions, there is less clutter competing for attention. Other environments bombard the brain with competing messages. Bright signs, chaotic layouts, dense traffic patterns, and constant movement create an endless stream of visual information. For ADHD brains, visual overload can be just as exhausting as auditory overload. This is one reason many people feel unexpectedly comfortable in historic European towns. These places were often designed on a human scale long before modern transportation and commercial development reshaped urban life. Walking speeds are slower, distances feel manageable. Materials like stone, wood, and water dominate the landscape. Public spaces encourage observation rather than consumption. The result is often a subtle but powerful reduction in nervous system demand. The practical lesson here is important. Most people spend years trying to optimize themselves while ignoring the environments in which they live. They search for better productivity systems, better routines, better supplements, and better habits. All of these things can help. But sometimes the fastest way to improve how you feel is not to change yourself. It is to change your environment. This does not necessarily mean moving to the countryside or relocating to a different country. For some people, that may be the right decision. For many others, small environmental adjustments create meaningful improvements. Spending more time in nature, reducing background noise, creating a visually calmer home, taking daily walks without headphones, spending time near water, choosing travel destinations based on nervous system recovery rather than stimulation, protecting periods of silence during the day. These changes may seem small, but the nervous system responds strongly to repeated patterns. Perhaps the most important realization is that your environment is not neutral. Every place either consumes energy or supports energy. Every space either increases cognitive demand or reduces cognitive demand. Every environment influences how much work your brain must perform simply to function. Once you understand this, many experiences begin to make sense. The city that leaves you exhausted, the holiday destination that makes you feel alive, the cafe where you can finally think clearly, the forest path where your anxiety disappears. These are not random preferences. They are clues. For many ADHD adults, quiet places feel like therapy because they temporarily remove the invisible burden of constant processing. The nervous system finally stops defending itself against endless incoming information. Attention can settle. Recovery can begin. The body feels safe enough to relax. And beneath all the noise, many people rediscover something they have been missing for a long time: themselves. So if you have ever wondered why a lake, a forest, a quiet village, or a peaceful corner of the world feels almost healing, the answer may be simpler than you think. It is not because you are escaping life. It is because, for a brief moment, your brain is no longer fighting the environment around it. And sometimes that feeling of finally having enough space to breathe is exactly what therapy feels like. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. What is the calmest place you have ever visited, and how did your nervous system feel there? And if you're interested in ADHD, nervous system health, calm living, and restorative travel, subscribe to Complex Brain Living. New videos every Sunday. Until next time, take care of your nervous system, protect your energy, and remember that living well is often less about pushing harder and more about creating the right conditions for your brain to thrive.